Hi, I'm MJ from Linus Publications, and this time we're going to be talking about something different. One of the things I've been doing since early in, probably around 2011 or so, I started to chart out seizure probabilities. I actually go in and do all the calculations on charts, but later, a few years after that, I started to see if I could chart them out to sort of make people understand how astrology can be really useful with trying to predict things with seizures. But it's not really easy to create these charts. What happens is that you have to actually understand the underlying astrological chart before you can create a graphical chart showing when seizures might be happening. One of the reasons I got involved in this is that one of my dogs developed seizures. And if for people that have dealt with seizures, you know how devastating it can be that at any point in time you could have a seizure happen. And I said, I'm an astrologer. I should be able to figure this out. And I did. I actually went about and I've graphed. Luckily, I had every single seizure that occurred. I could go back and track every single angle that was happening when the seizure happened. And then when I was finally ready, I sat down and I actually said, wow, this is, I know what's causing this. And I could actually figure out when she was going to have her next seizure, or a good likelihood. I don't want to say when, but a higher probability, in effect. I like to use that term, probability, rather than having a seizure. And as it turned out, I said it's going to happen next week. It's going to be like between 1 and 2 o'clock at night. So, in effect, very early morning. And that's when it happened. And that's when I went about and I started tracking all her seizures. I could determine when they were going to happen. And because of that, I was able to actually get her down a little less on the medicines. And another thing was that with her chart, and I don't know if you can do it with other charts, the other things I've used haven't been that clear, but I was actually able to identify when she was going to be having an up in the dosage or a down or a decrease in the dosage. And that was really interesting, so I could be prepared for that. We got to the point that we were actually able to pretty much drop her medicine down in half, but her seizures were controlled. She wasn't having them anymore. And luckily, and it was just remarkable what we were able to do. So I want to share some of the charts that I produced, in effect, on her. And then I have a lot of other research on other people and dogs that I've done. And in this case, I'm going to show a chart of a person that actually, it's a celebrity, name's not involved here, that actually died of a seizure. And we can see then on the chart, it's showing when it happened. It wouldn't say the severity, but that it happened. Sorry, the allergies, my God. My throat gets really dry. So the first chart that we're looking at is, in effect, we can see that we have three different colors in the chart. We have a dark blue, we have a light blue, and we have a grayish color. And we have a yellow line going across the chart. That yellow line is giving you an indication that above that point, it's going to be a higher probability of a seizure. But there's more to it than that. You actually have to have the right proportion. Yes, I said it, the right proportion of both the blue, the light blue, and at least a little bit of the gray. So if you look at the first chart, we can see here that my dog, Lucy, actually had quite a series of seizures that year. And we saw two seizures. The seizures are in yellow. You see the lines up and down, and they're circled. So we had approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6 seizures happening. And you can see in each one of them that we had a higher percentage of the dark blue, the light blue, and some of the gray. And they were typically above the yellow line. That's important. Now, for an example, let's take a look at the second chart here. Next one. Here, we're seeing, well, we've got blue, we've got the gray, and we've got some dark blue. Got some places above the yellow line, but what's the difference? We don't have as much as the dark blue. So you need to have a good amount of the dark blue to be able, in this case, to identify that a seizure is going to happen. Now let's take a look at our next chart. In this one, we had seizures in the middle. So in this case, how is this different than the rest of the line? Well, if we look at that point when the seizures happen, which is right around the middle of the chart, circled in yellow, we have more of the dark blue. What do we also have? A good proportion of the light blue. We also have a little bit of that gray. And that gray is important. It has to be at least a little bit. And it's all above the yellow line. Now, were there other places that might have been a seizure? Yes. But with the dark blue, you also want it there for a little bit of time. So if it just pops up and it's not there for, a good amount, then it may not be a seizure. But that gets into the real technical aspect of this. Now let's take a look at the next chart. In this case, we've got a lot of the dark blue, but very little of that light blue, and some of the gray, and very barely going above the yellow line. So this is a chart that I would say, no, not a high likelihood of a seizure. Now, the last chart I'm going to show you is of a celebrity that had a seizure, and the celebrity died from it, probably about a month later, 2 months later. Went into a coma, which people that are familiar with seizures know can happen. In this case, we can see we've got, for that whole year, a good amount of dark blue. Not a lot, but a good amount. So think of it as setting the stage. That light blue is coming along, and we can see that in the middle of the chart, it's up there. And then what else do we have? We have the gray. So we had the seizure happen. And in fact, in this case, it was multiple seizures. And shortly after, the person died. So what does this do? It helps you identify when you may have seizures. Does it catch them all? Hopefully, but not likely. Okay. Does it allow you at least some ability to understand when seizures might happen? Yes. I offer this as a product on my website. Now, again, there's a lot of work that goes into even just looking at the charts to determine what is causing the seizures and to be able to graph them out. But once you look at it, identify it, you can graph it. In my case, on my dog's case, I was able to actually identify when medicine would be changed. That's not likely going to happen with anyone else. I was lucky in my dog's case. In my dog's case, I did have a date of birth. I didn't have a time of birth, though. It probably would have been a lot more accurate if I had a time of birth. There are setup charges on this to set up the initial charts to analyze. Because if you've had already 20 seizures, I have to set up a chart for each and every one of those seizures. So there's setup costs on that. But once you have the initial setup, it shouldn't change. But you do have to be able to have track of each and every single seizure that happened. So take a look at my website. We have some other charts out there, some of my other charts that I did for our clients that you can take a look at. They're not in this. They're in actually black, red, and gray. But I think these colors are actually a little bit better. And if you're interested, just send me an email. It's info@lionesspublications.com. I can answer any questions you have. Thank you so much. Hope to hear from you, and have a great day. Bye now.